Welcome to Blinkers Off with your hosts, Jared Welch and Aaron Halterman.
Hello, what is up? I'm Jared Welch. He's Aaron Halterman. It is Thursday, September 19th, and this is Blinkers Off. What's up, man?
Yep. What's up?
What's new?
Nothing, man. Ready for another big one. It's gonna be very, very interesting to see how everything shakes out this weekend at Parx. It was crazy last year. Let's see if it remains crazy this year. And gosh, it feels like the Breeders' Cup's here. I mean, it's kind of wild.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting weekend. We do have a Breeders' Cup race at Gulfstream, but these aren't official Breeders' Cup races. But obviously, especially with the Cotillion, I mean, you're talking about, even Power Squeeze is kind of turned into a nice little horse as well. So, I mean, you got to imagine Longines, distaff horses, obviously Torpedo Anna, without question. On the field or on the Colt side, the 3-year-old in the Pennsylvania Derby, that to me looks still in the air, like what these horses are. I mean, the favorite is Dragoon Guard, who's a horse that is kind of starting to run, finally start to run better. So maybe he runs himself into like the mile or, the dirt mile or something. I don't know. But this 3-year-old race on the Colt side definitely still seems questionable, in my opinion, when you look at this race.
Yeah, I just kind of we're seeing the different in horse racing now is how different it is, because you used to get horses, maybe not the Travers winner, but you'd get horses come out of the Travers and run in this race. And I mean, you got unmatched wisdom, I guess, so you got one or two, but it's just, it's a whole different set of horses that are running here compared to the ones that ran in the Haskell and the Jim Dandy and the Travers. So it's a little disappointing from that standpoint. Yeah, look, I think this Pennsylvania Derby is definitely, it's something. I think there are a couple that are okay. We do have the Preakness winners. There's that. And then you kind of look at, the fact that here's Torpedo Anna. She's here again. She's showing up in another race. She's kind of, this is what a 3-year-old filly is supposed to do, running this race. So I mean, it just kind of another check mark in her favor of she's here. She ran in the Travers and man, right after that race, Kenny McPeak said, we're going to the Cotillion, and here we are.
Yeah, basically said we're going to go kill him in the Cotillion and then go to the distaff. That's the plan. So I mean, listen, this weekend to me feels like it's her and then everybody else, in terms of not just like that race, but like just the bigger picture of who's running this weekend and what it means as we get to the Breeders' Cup. But, we'll find out. Obviously, if you want to, the Pennsylvania Derby I think is a great betting race. Just because, like you mentioned, it is one of those races over the, seems like it's like either you have a horse that should wins, or it's just something like, take a guess, right? We've seen it firsthand on that. So you just never know. So we'll get to that. But last weekend we had the Iroquois and the Pocahontas. Of course, the 2-year-old racing kicking off as far as the Kentucky Derby, Kentucky Oaks Trails are happening. And you had Licara and Jonathan's Way. Jonathan's Way won gate to wire. Should have won, was the favorite. Licara was, was not the favorite, but was not a huge price. Like we got like 5-1 on her. Thoughts on those two moving forward as he goes to each of their respective trails?
Yeah, Jonathan's Way was awesome. I don't think you could describe it any other way than that. I mean, just a powerhouse effort. Kind of just dominated. And Owen Almighty was a pretty darn good horse, and Jonathan Way just totally dominated. So he's going to train up to the Breeders' Cup now. I don't know if I like that really, but I do like him as a horse. He's very talented. How far does he want to run? That's another question mark. But again, from what we've seen from him, he looks very good. So he checks the boxes. And then Licara, just another horse I thought looked great. It was a solid effort. It wasn't as flawless looking as Jonathan's Way, but she also earned it, got a little, more experience under her belt, basically trying to have to come from out of it to win a little bit. And Licara is a horse that was always kind of hyped and never lived up to it, then finally did. And then it was good to see her do it again on back-to-back races like last weekend. And it was good to see her at 5-1 as well. Not going to lie. So anyway, she's, I thought both of them were nice. I don't know if either of them are Breeders' Cup winners or not, because there's a lot to unpack still left in the division coming up. But I think they're both contenders off those races.
Yeah, as far as their divisions and their races, I think I like Lucara better. Just from just not everything being like in the vacuum for each of their divisions. Not saying if you compare the two, but but we kind of talked about it on the show last week. John's Way, Vekoma. How far will the horse really want to go? But the mile was not a concern, but maybe stretching out. So you kind of wonder what that means. Moving forward, especially if they do the Breeders' Cup, like you said, train up to the Breeders' Cup. I mean, because then you're like, we don't even know, right? If the horse will go mile 16th and will be speed, but how far will he want to go? And with Lucara, being a street sense out of a Bernardini mare, like this horse just feels like the more this horse runs and the longer they go, this horse will be there, right? And so I have a little bit higher future, or at least potential future, I think, for Lucara.
I don't know about you, but when I watched that race and kind of watched it back, she's still kind of figuring out what to do at times. She's not polished all the way, and I think that potential is there for her to get better and improve, because she's kind of still, I don't know, it just kind of seemed like to me she wasn't focused maybe the whole time, or maybe just running in spots. I don't know. She still didn't look like she's a finished product, so to speak.
No, she really didn't feel like she ran a whole bunch in that race, really.
Yes.
Kind of ran a little bit to get in a position. And then once she kind of got home, it was, or, on her way home, it was like, you never really felt like she was losing, but at the same time, you're like, come on, so
yeah, she didn't kind of have that, okay, it's time to kind of put them away. I don't know if attitude's the right word, but
yeah,
she still didn't look like she had the know-how to actually, like, it's like you say, she looked better than the field the whole race, but you didn't know if she was going to win. Yeah.
Yeah. She just kind of was cruising home, just kind of never really acted like she had, a lot of rush to do it. So, again, I think she has got the highest potential, but it's early, right? I mean, and anything, I think this year from the Iroquois standpoint has not been a super productive race, and I don't know, maybe it won't be again this year. So
yeah,
let's look forward a couple other races. We talked a lot about a Woodbine last week. What'd you think of Woodbine, in particular the Woodbine Mile?
It was weird. It was weird. I don't know. All those races were kind of strange. We had a couple of heartbreaking losses in those 2-year-old races, the Talbot in the summer. The Woodbine Mile, it didn't go anywhere how I thought it would go. I don't know what to take from him. It was pretty crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, it was. It sucked. Yeah.
Well, losing the Vixen race
one was a heartbreaker.
Yeah.
I mean, we both had that one. We had it at 6-1. Did out. Just golly, I could not. And it's like, really, it's like the other one. Like the other Mark Cassidy, that was a huge price. That at 16-1, that's who beats me. Just so annoying.
It certainly was, especially when we kind of identified, okay, this Appleby that was in that race with Vixen, we don't like that one. And we were right. And we were right that the horse we picked was going to run big, and we still lost. That hurt. And then really the other race where we liked the Appleby and he ran well and got beat, so it's like I felt like, now not the Woodbine Mile, I was way wrong on it, but you felt like those 2-year-old races, I handicapped that well enough, and I did not, cash in. And that was frustrating, very frustrating.
Yeah. honestly, Vixen and I'll call it Quadra or whatever. Like
Yeah.
like those two were like, listen, those are just plain and simple bad luck or just unlucky, whatever how you want to phrase that. But the one big disappointment was Naval Power in the Woodbine Mile. Like he
Yeah.
just and honestly, if you would have looked at that card in the race, it's like, well, that's the one that I really think will win. If nothing else, if the horse got beat by, I guess it would be Philo or something like that, then I'd be like, well, Philo loves that track and just ran well, but just never threatened at all.
Nope. No, didn't fire at all, and yeah, exactly. Just ran horrific, and you knew, honestly, watching that race, he was never going to fire. Like from what midway up the backside, you're like,
Yeah,
he's not doing
yeah.
anything. So it wasn't good, and thankfully, Patches of Houlihan ran in the next race, and we were able to kind of recover some of it. But yeah, it was overall really frustrating, and yeah, like you said, I mean, I think a lot of times now with the Appleby horses, and we've talked about this for months, he doesn't just send one or two over, he's sending a lot, and you got to decipher. And that's what kind of pissed me off is we've done a really good job over the last couple of months, not just blindly betting him, but deciphering, okay, who's good and who's not. And I felt like we did a good job there at Woodbine with those 2-year-old races and didn't get paid. And then Naval Powers one, I think everybody thought would fire, and he just didn't. He didn't show up. So it was frustrating to watch Woodbine. I just kept shaking my head all day. And like I said, Patches O'Houlihan, thank God for him, helped a little bit. But
yeah, that horse at least helped.
Yeah,
salvage a little bit of my day because I just like, well, I loved Al Quadra. I loved the Naval Power, and then obviously Patches. So I was like, when I got to that race, obviously being heartbreak after heartbreak in those, I'm like, you gotta come through, dude. You gotta come through, and yeah, Patches was awesome. So,
Yep.
but yeah, I don't know what those Appleby horses are becoming harder and harder to. And we talked about him. I can't remember if it was last week or maybe it's a few weeks ago, but like how this year it feels different. One, he's running more horses, and why he's running more horses too is like we don't have. It used to be like if he ran a horse, it was like name one of the just absolute monsters that he had, and he brought him over, and you're like, well, he's not losing.
Right.
Like now it's like he runs more of them, and it feels like the ones he's bringing over here are for the most part very. I mean, they're still competitive, and they're still probably better than most of our turf horses, but they're certainly not those stars that we were seeing him bring over. And so it's making it harder to just blindly, I don't want to say blindly, but but like you said, like be like, oh, well, it's Appleby. He's bringing one over. That horse can't lose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's just it. I mean, it started, I mean, it really started early in the year, but it's just been like that all year. And again, it's when you are coming over here 5-6 times a year, let's say, and you're bringing the horse that is perfect for the spot, you're going to have a high winning percentage. But you're like every other trainer in the world. When you're bringing 12 horses over on 2 or 3 weekends, they're not all going to win because you look, just take the Belmont Festival of Racing, for example. He had them loaded up every day at Saratoga. He won one time in 4 days because he's not automatic. These horses aren't just going to show up and just beat everybody because you're getting down to his lower ones. And so, again, most of us caught that pretty quickly. Really, after the Derby, we kind of said, okay, this is a different situation, and we adjusted. But you can't, and again, and that's why the Woodbine thing, again, I'll go back to it. It was very frustrating because to me, there were 2 horses he brought over that were pretty clear they should win, and one you could clearly go against, and it didn't work out. And that's where the frustration comes in. He's just like any other trainer now, but you felt like you had a good read and you still didn't cash, and that pisses you off. But anyway.
Well, yeah, it will be. It certainly makes it challenging for what's the biggest international event that we have, at least over here, and that's of course coming up next month. Well, almost next month, the Breeders' Cup, and so obviously that's going to become challenging to decipher, who he's bringing over, and of course then you got to factor in the Aidens and those horses as well. But certainly it doesn't give you a lot of confidence, the way some of his horses have been running. and then saying, oh, well, they're entering in the, the grade 1 turf or whatever. And you're like, oh shit. Like there's an Aiden and there's a, whoever, it's going to be tough to kind of decipher and have confidence in him at the Breeders' Cup.
Oh, I don't. I mean, yes and no. I think the one thing I can confidently say about the Breeders' Cup is the turf races are where we have done extremely well over the years. So yes and no is how I'd answer it. I mean, the one thing with the Breeders' Cup, he's not fooling around with just anybody, so that's kind of good. And like you said, sometimes it's in Spiral that you back. That's not his. Sometimes it's an Aiden O'Brien monster. So you're not just counting on just him at the Breeders' Cup as well, and that helps. So I'm not overly concerned about the Breeders' Cup turf races. We've historically been very strong in those races. So it's just a matter of kind of doing your homework at that point.
Is Cogburn? I saw the Cogburn and Robbie thought of it. Is Cogburn the only horse that, as we head into the Breeders' Cup, like you just think is so automatic in that race?
No, I don't think so. I don't think he's automatic because it is an American horse, on the turf. I need to see who else is here. I would say, and I guess I would back up and say out of all the races, he's the one that, at this point, I'm pretty sure he's going to be the pick unless they bring something. But it's always hard for me to call an American horse, even in the turf sprint, automatic until you see what those European horses are. I've seen many of really, really good American horses get beat in those turf races by some monster.
Yeah, the only caveat is his biggest thing is his speed, right? And what are typically when these Europeans come over. Now, I will say this, over the last, I don't know, say 2 or 3 years, we've seen these Europeans bring more speed over into these races versus, because they know that's what's going to win 9 times out of 10. And so he kind of has them over barrel just from jump, just because his speed is such a differentiator. And so even if a horse is a great European horse, it's like, well, and we saw it with not to say this is like a world-class horse, but what's the horse? Midnight, the horse he beat in the Jaipur and then came back to win the app. I think it was an Appleby.
Yeah, it was an Appleby filly. Yeah.
And so it's like, that was a pretty damn good one, and he just annihilated. So I do think that his speed kind of, it hurts any of the other horses' chances, because we've learned you cannot run with him.
Yeah, if he runs like he did in the Jaipur, or like he did even really in Kentucky Downs, I thought he was really good. I mean, he's probably not going to lose, no matter who they bring over. You think of like a Golden Pal and how he was able to win a couple of Breeders' Cups doing what you said, whether it was the juvenile turf sprint or whether it was the regular turf sprint. The next year, he had that speed and he could get out in front, and they just couldn't catch him. He was just too good. He would run him into the ground, and that's what Cogburn can do. But again, hey, he's my favorite horse in training, just flat out. I will tell you, Cogburn is my favorite horse in training, period. Torpedo Anna would be second, but Cogburn, I love him. I can't say right now without knowing who's coming in overseas on any turf race, hey, they're a lock. I just can't say it because
right.
I've just seen really, really good horses of ours get beat.
Speaking of locks, maybe we have one or two this weekend at Pennsylvania. So let's get to today's racing. On today's show, we're going to preview and give picks for Saturdays. We've got Pennsylvania Derby action, folks. The Cotillion, the $1 million Cotillion Stakes, of course, with Torpedo Anna, and the $1 million Pennsylvania Derby. Both there at Parx Racing. Then we're going to give some selections for the Princess Rooney Invitational at Gulfstream Park. It is a win you're in for the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series. Let's go.
One point I was thinking of, I should have said it while we were talking about it there, but I think who the big European horses are that come over sometimes will tell you, like if that race draws light on European horses, it kind of tips the hand of, we don't think we can beat him. You've seen that happen before in a race or two. So that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Who shows up tells you a lot about how they view the race, right?
Exactly.
And I think at this point we've kind of learned, and anyone's probably kind of learned that, like, listen, you just kind of have to. You got to hope you beat him, and that's the thing that like you said, the same thing with Golden Pal. It makes him such a. You got to beat him, quote unquote, fair and square, because you can't go out. You got to just run him down, And so far, there hasn't been a horse that can even sniff him when he's got that, And the problem is what horse is fast enough to even attempt to even tire him out, right?
Yeah, right now nobody. And it's still a little ways away, right? But right now, it better be really, really good.
Who was the Alms? No. What's the horse that won it last year? The turf sprint. Juvenile turf sprint.
Big Evs.
Big Evs, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that horse coming?
Yeah, I mean that's one you think about that came over here and won a sprint and did it really impressively. I don't have any idea what he's done since, because I don't follow those horses until they come over here, and he hasn't been back since. So but that's certainly one you would think is like, hey, that's a really good sprinter.
I think he won a couple times since. Yeah, he won. I just looked it up. He won at Goodwood. Grade 2, Group 2. He won at York after in May. He was off till May after that Breeders' Cup. Won that race, got third in the King Charles at Ascot, won the King George at Goodwood, and then just last month ran in the Coolmore Wooten Bassett. It's a Group 1, finished 8th, so it didn't run well. That was at York, but.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he just one of the big things about him that day that I like so much about the Big Evs is he had that Euro, but he was Euro turf, but he had turf speed. He was fat, like he was up on the lead or right on the lead, and so that was a differentiator for me for him in the race. But so it's like I don't know that he can keep up with Cogburn though.
Like I said, I'd have to watch what he's done this year. And I mean, if he comes here, I obviously will. But yeah, I mean, he was super impressive last year. I know the resume leading up to last year was super impressive as well. So that always helps.
Well, like you said, we are, listen, literally like a little less than a month, really, because, really the last preps will be that first weekend or so after of October. So a month from today, I mean, we will be just a couple weeks out to the race. So it's like we're just crazy. I'd say 3 weeks away, 2 weeks away even from really being like, okay, this is who's coming. These are the fields starting to shape up. And so it's I don't understand how it's already here, but I say that every year, I think.
I hear you.
All right, let's go to Parx Racing on Saturday. That's right. We have race number 13. We'll kick things off with the main event. We'll go back one race after this for the Cotillion. Race number 13, the Pennsylvania Derby, Grade 1, $1 million race, going a mile and 8 for those 3-year-olds. We have a fairly large field here, a field of 11 lined up here. And, hey, number 7, Dragoon Guard at 9-5 for Brad Cox has looked almost unbeatable. Now in the last couple of races now, he has been running in the lower level kind of, derbies, we call them in those summer races, West Virginia Derby, the Indiana Derby, but he's winning them the right way. He's rattled off 4 straight wins, deserving favorite at 9-5, but he does have some challengers in here, including, that's right, the Preakness winner. You've got the Preakness winner, Seize the Gray, maybe can rebound after 2 really dud efforts in the Belmont and the Jim Dandy following that race. But what do you think of the race? What do you think of Dragoon Guard?
Yeah, look, I think he looks to me to the part. I mean, you kind of looked at the Indiana Derby. That was the first kind of big question mark, and just passed it with flying colors, and was a 2.5 length winner over the 5-2 choice Stronghold in this spot again. And so you look at that and go, well, the Indiana Derby was a grade 3, the Pennsylvania Derby is a grade 1, and You know, if you believe the morning line odds, he's just got to beat the same horse again to be a grade 1 winner, you know, that he was when he was a grade 3 winner. So, and again, the race at West Virginia is pretty much a workmanlike effort. So he's looked the part. He's been really good. You know, I think he's going to be tough. I think the big key, and I know Rodney's kind of mentioned a couple times in the chat, so I'll get to it now, is look, Dragoon Guard has won gate to wire 3 straight times. I'm not sure he can win gate to wire here. Meaning I think there's going to be too much speed for him to just be out there by himself. So we may have to see a new dimension. You may have to go back to when he was just a maiden and broke his maiden at Keeneland, and he sat, you know, just off the pace for just a minute and then went on with it. So that may be kind of what he has to do. Because look, I think Seize the Gray, you got to think that horse has to go. I mean, that's the only chance for me for Seize the Gray. Unmatched Wisdom, you got to think after that disaster where they tried to rate him, or at least he just didn't run very well in the Travers, you got to think they're going to try to send him. And so I think the test for Dragoon Guard is sitting off of it. Can he sit just a little bit off, or will he kind of get in a speed duel? That's the big question mark.
Yeah, the concern you have for him is, I mean, again, like maybe definitely outlier is for Seize the Gray is that Preakness with the number standpoint. Yeah. But if you want to factor that in where he went to the lead, even if you don't want to factor that in, you can look at Unmatched Wisdom. Unmatched Wisdom, other than the Travers, every race of his, the first 3 races are better from a numbers perspective than Dragoon Guard. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I don't even love Unmatched Wisdom all that much, but you can't, and that's kind of across the board. In the Curlin, he got a 99 buyer. Even his allowance win, he got a 93 buyer, and on debut, he got a 98 buyer. The last 3 races for Dragoon Guard have been 91s across the board, every one of them. So is he great? I mean, I don't think he's great, but I do think he's very, very reliable, and he does his thing. But yeah, if he's going to he can't win going to the lead like he has the last 3 races. So it's going to have to be a new dimension if he were to do it. Now, is there? Yeah, maybe. I mean, like, I'm not saying that there isn't, but for me, with all the speed that's in the race, the horses, and on top of that, it's like, even though if you don't like Unmatched Wisdom, like, his numbers from a speed standpoint even are better than Dragoon Guard. So he will be a legit factor, certainly, especially with them both being, you know, side by side in the gate. I'm a little worried by taking a short price on Dragoon Guard.
Yeah, it's understandable. And you want to talk about Unmatched Wisdom. The one thing that he's kind of shown in a couple of his races, the first 2 races, he kind of, you know, he's another one. He was up on the pace, but he didn't have to absolutely have the lead in either one of those. So maybe he's proven a little bit more that he can stalk the pace than Dragoon Guard. Then the race of the Curlin, he kind of felt, if you remember, that Curlin had no speed and hardly any horses in it either. And he kind of just fell on the lead. The Travers kind of just draw a line through, I guess. I mean, he just didn't get out there where he should. The ride wasn't aggressive, I'll say, and just didn't do any running. So you can almost draw a line through it. My problem with Unmatched Wisdom, I didn't really like the race in the Curlin very well. I'm not a big fan of Corporate Power. Like we talked about the Travers, I was never even thought about that horse. And Corporate Power kind of made up ground on him. And it was, I don't know. So that's kind of the downside. But I do think the good side of Unmatched Wisdom is he's 3 for 3 when he's been in races that made sense. The Travers, they tried it, and this was a disaster. And even though this is a grade 1, it's really more of a grade 3 on paper. We kind of highlighted that. So
yeah,
this kind of race is kind of where it makes a lot of sense for him. So I think he's dangerous at this price.
Yeah, I think the prices are going to be odd in this one. I mean, because I think the morning lines are all over the place. Like Pratt and Chad Brown in the grade 1. I mean, I don't think you're getting 8-1 on Unmatched Wisdom, even though he was terrible in the Travers. You know, Seize the Gray at 5-1 is probably around that range. But yeah, I think it's going to be all over the place as far as the morning lines go. The horse that I think on paper and really if you watch him race, I like a lot. I just don't know that if he's good enough to get the job done as the 11 stronghold.
Yep.
I think the race, he sits outside. He's got the class, the pace. He should be able to. He can sit close to the pace, but we saw it in the Indiana Derby last time out. Doesn't need to be on the lead. Problem is, dude, I just don't know if he's good enough to get the job done. And it's kind of been proven time over time. I get it. That last race was off the Derby layoff. He had every opportunity and really didn't gain any ground on Dragoon Guard as they were going down the stretch.
I mean, you hit it right on the head, and I couldn't say it any better. And when I handicapped this thing, I said the exact same thing. Everything seems to be there. I'm just not sure he's that good. And again, I say that knowing that, yes, he has won the Santa Anita Derby and the Sunland Derby, but we know what those races were, right? Not all Santa Anita Derbies are created equal. That was a bad running of it, right? We know that. I think it's not now or never, but it's definitely, boy, he should win type of race. And I'm with you. The more I circled back to him, I thought, I just don't know if he's good enough. He is hopefully for his sake and for people who are going to bet him, he should get the pace, like you mentioned. If that, and trust me, sometimes it looks like it on paper and it doesn't show up, but if it does, he's going to be right there. And the thing I've liked about him forever, I've always liked this about him, he is not a dead closer. He can sit close to the pace. He can sit 3-4 links, 2-3 links off of it. He gets the first run, but like you said, sometimes he just can't seem to make it up at the end. So I'm with you. It all sets up well for him. He should be nice and rested. Dragoon Guard had a race after the Indiana Derby. Stronghold is not. He's kind of prepared for this one. So,
yeah. I will say this. Like when you talk about Dragoon, if there's a lot of ifs there, but if he were to win in like he did say in his main special weight, where he kind of comes off of it and then runs away with it, and kind of like this race goes from like I don't think these are like really serious players. I think they're like grade 3 kind of horses. To am I going to pick him in the Breeders' Cup? Probably not, but he becomes interesting, right? Because he's obviously doing things the right way. If he were to kind of win this race the right way and kind of extend his margin like he has been the last couple of races, it shows he's a versatile horse. It shows that he's obviously a talented horse, and he's got the right connections that could make him interesting at the Breeders' Cup or even moving forward. So I'll say that. I just don't want to sit here and shit all over Dragoon Guard and say, well, the pace is going to cook him. The pace can cook him. If he were to win like that, he becomes very interesting to me.
I'll go a step further. I'm not going to shit him at all. I think he's the easy pick in this race to win. How about that? I mean, let me back up. I don't think it's an easy race. I will stop. He's not an easy pick. He's not a single for me. But why? What exactly makes me think that he should lose? I think he should beat these horses.
Yeah.
If we love Stronghold, well, he beat him fairly easy. And, I see it in the comments. You see this every week. Well, the track was biased that day, or there's going to be so much more pace. There might not be. There doesn't have to be. Just because there's pace on paper doesn't mean there's going to be pace when they break from the gate. You only see that 28 times a day. And is Parx not one of the most speed biased tracks in the country, if not the most? Yeah. So again, the easiest way to win races on the dirt in the United States is to get to the front. So I'm not real worried about his running style, to be completely honest. And again, could the pace set up to be very fast? Absolutely. And that is an issue, but it might not at the same time. And if he gets out on the lead and there's not a lot of pace and he's on a speed biased track, I mean, Stronghold's not going to catch him, and none of them are. So, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the deal of it is his path to victory is about as easy as any of them.
All right, so I will say this: I'm using them. I'm not picking them on top. Dragoon. That's just mostly because of the value standpoint. I'll give you a horse that you can You can get shit on if you'd like. But this horse is to me the horse in the race that has the most potential upside. Bred to go long, continues to run in these these kind of races, these longer races. Just the way the horse has ran these last two, even though the horse didn't win, it just feels like is kind of on the cusp of winning one of these big ones. If the pace is what we think it is, softens up a little bit, I think the 4 at 10-1 timeout is very interesting here. It is certainly eligible to improve off of those efforts. I didn't necessarily, like you said, the Curlin had like 3 horses in it or whatever. So he was against it from the get-go that day. The main special weight race was a really nice race. And then the allowance last time out didn't run terrible, just couldn't quite get there to the winner. He probably deserves to be 10-1. Maybe he's like 6-7-1 by the time they go to post. But I think he's got in here with a shot. Bill Mott, Rosario, horse is training well. Give me that horse to kind of pull off an upset here.
In my opinion, he needs to be 10-1 to bet him. I see it. I don't necessarily disagree with the idea of picking him. I think the one pause that everybody needs to put, this horse has won one race, and he beat Military Road, who refuses to win races. Military Road is less than even money every time he runs, and every time he just runs with the competition and never wins. So the one win that he has is over a horse that everybody beats. I'm with you in the Curlin. I just draw a line through that. It was what it was, right? He's not going to be the horse that wins a race like that, the way it's set up. Where's the excuse last time out at Saratoga? That's a problem. Like, this horse has never really run a poor race. But he's a lot like Stronghold, in my opinion. You just don't know if he's quite good enough, But I think, to your point, you could back Stronghold at 5-2, or you could take a shot at timeout at a much better price.
Yeah. At that point, the race he did win, he also beat a horse. He got finished third that day at Reynolds Channel, who came back to win very impressively. Came back and ran okay in the Jerkins, finished 5th. Wasn't, he's definitely needed more ground. But yeah, it's a fair point for sure. And like you said, he deserves to be, and that's why I'm picking him, because I think he presents a ton of value. And you know what? Ronnie, you might be right. Like, he might be that horse, like, where he hits the board, runs well, and I'm like, damn, he just isn't quite good enough, but does his thing. So that is a concern, obviously. But again, he'll be on my tickets because obviously I'm picking him on top, but I won't be using him alone on top.
I think the biggest thing he's got going for him is Bill Mott knows how to progress a racehorse down the road, right? And Mott must think this horse is doing pretty darn well, and then he knows this was it's a grade 1, but it's not a overly tough grade 1. It's a good spot. Even if you hit the board in a grade 1, that means something for the breeding. And so I think Bill Mott being on this horse's side is the number one thing that has me interested. But I just think realistically, you have to look at this and go, well, he really hasn't ever beaten anybody. And some of these horses he's lost to really weren't very good. Unmatched Wisdom, Corporate Power. I maybe have finished the Travers yesterday, right? He lost to him. Now, I know things didn't really go his way, and it was a really tough setup, but he never sniffed him, So there's a lot of negative with timeout. And that's why I say, if you can get 8-10-1 on him, then I support it. If you bet him when if he was to go lower than that, I'm not sure there's enough horse there to back him at like a 5-1 price, 4-1 price. But 8-10-1, that's probably what he should be. I don't think he's any worse than a good number of these horses, and I think as a long shot play, there's definitely cases there where he makes a ton of sense.
Well, speaking of, if you're looking at horses to beat the favorite, and I do think a lot of these are pretty equal, but the one horse that does stand out that's not equal, just because you won a triple crown race, you got to be above that, right? Number 2, Seize the Gray for Lucas at 5-1. Again, one I wanted to at least kind of touch on because he deserves to be.
Yeah.
But listen, you went. He kind of erupted. The bluegrass was awful. He really was not that good of a horse.
No.
Pat Day, who won, He goes straight to the Preakness, wins that, looks dominant, gets 100 buyer. The Belmont was awful. The Jim Dandy was awful. I mean, so what are you doing with him here?
Oh, I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, this is the easiest horse to handicap. He's ran 12 times. One race out of his 12 will win this race. The other 11, he won't be in the top 5. I can say it with 100% confidence. I tried and tried and tried to tell people that, and nobody really wanted to listen. Oh no, he won the Pat Day. This is one of the worst Pat Day miles we've ever had. Credit him for winning.
Yeah.
That's a huge win. And he stepped up and out of absolute thin air ran a race that was just incredible in the Preakness. And I said at the Belmont, if he's that horse, if that's who he is now, he will have a great shot to win the Belmont. If he goes back to who he is, he won't be anywhere close. And he's went back to who he is. So I have no idea how he did it in the Preakness. The conditions were right. He loved the mud. He got out by himself, all this stuff. His other races, he's good. And that's where it ends. He's good, not great.
We'll say that. I'll give you a hot take. He did us all a favor because if Mystic Dan were to win the Preakness, which he got second, and may have been the worst horse of all time going for the Triple Crown. Okay. So I'll put it that way.
That's true.
So maybe he did us all a favor. Okay. And we got Lucas on that race. But listen, I agree. I mean, he's the easiest, like, hey, if he wins, he beats me every single time for the rest of his career.
Well, and let me point out, there was nobody more happy than me to see him win it because of Lucas. Like, yeah, I was thrilled that he won the Preakness. And people always be like, you hate this horse. I met one of his however many owners at the remember the Travers or Belmont at the Travers or Belmont at Saratoga. I'll get it right eventually. And they're like, you hate him. And I'm like, I don't hate him. I'm a handicapper.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want me to say? He's a very good to above average horse who ran a monster, one of the best races of the year for a 3-year-old. And now he's just back to being a good / above average horse.
Yeah, he there's no, and honestly with Lucas you really never know until it happens. And one thing about him is that when he loses one, like meaning like when they start to kind of fade off, it's 9 times out of 10 he's not getting them back, at least the rest of that year, like it just. He'll run them. They'll hit that peak. They'll hit that run 1 or 2 race where it's like they just look unbeatable, right? And then they just completely fall off. And so to me, it's like if you're trying to chase Caesar Gray, it's too late now.
See, and yeah, I couldn't have said it better again because the Belmont, you certainly could say, look, he's ran a bunch of races in a row. That's a tough ask. Hey, it is what it is. Like he was kind of due for that. Any horse was, he had proper time off. You went to the Jim Dandy. It was a really good spot for him. Like it made sense. Short field. He could get to the lead. He didn't run. And it's almost like what you said. He may just kind of be done. Yeah. Because as much as, like say, hey, even when he was winning all these races, he wasn't great. When you look at the Jim Dandy, he's better than that. Like he's better than that horse that ran in the Jim Dandy. That was bad.
What's funny is he wins the Preakness and then he comes back in the Belmont. In the Belmont, he's like 5-1. He got beat by 12 lengths. He obviously was not good, not close. Jim Dandy, he's only 1 click higher at 6-1. And so it just showed like you win that race, man, and you continue to get bet. And it's Lucas, and it's like, oh, it could happen again. If you know his rhythm, the kind of the cycle. To me, it's just an easy bet against. So
it is for me as well. I do think this race, it's a class drop though, for sure, like a big class drop. So he does have that going for him. This is a much easier spot than what he's been asked to do the last 3 races. One of them he won. So,
all right, top pick. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I'm going Dragoon Guard on top. I really like Unmatched Wisdom. I put him in second. I think those 2 are the ones I like best. And then I'm with you. I like Timeout and I like Stronghold. Those are kind of the 4 for me. that I looked at the most. So, but yeah, Dragoon Guard on top for me.
Yep, that's the 4 I would look at. I got obviously the 4 timeout on top, Dragoon Guard second. I'd put it on Match Wisdom third, Stronghold fourth. But I just I think on Match Wisdom, it's going to all depend on for really the pricing on a lot of these are going to be how I'm kind of betting the race, right? If you're giving me the odds exactly as they are listed, I give you my pick at number 4 timeout. But say Dragoon Guard was like 5-2, and somehow all these other horses were taking a bunch of money, then obviously Dragoon Guard becomes way more interesting to me at that price. So I think you just got to look at these prices closely. I have no interest in Stronghold at 5-2, and so that's kind of how I'm looking at the race. But give me the 4 timeout at a big price at 10-1. We'll see what happens Saturday in the Pennsylvania Derby. All right, one race prior, though, we have the Cotillion race number 12, the Grade 1 Cotillion, $1 million, mile 16th for the fillies, 3-year-olds. Field of 8 lines up here, and a horse that would win the Pennsylvania Derby if they wanted to run her there. Number 6, Torpedo Anna at 4-5, coming off that just one of the best races you'll ever see. Travers Stakes, where she just nearly got there to fierceness. But Torpedo Anna coming in off the loss against the boys, now back in the Phillies division at 4-5. Any way she loses?
Well, I think the only way she loses is if she just is not ready. She bounces, she does whatever, and just doesn't show up with her best race after that huge Travers effort. Well, then she could lose, right? I mean, that's any horse can lose if they're not, up to their best, or not even up to their best, just 80%, 70%, whatever. So that's the way she loses. But other than that, no, there's nobody that can beat her. She's beaten all these horses before, and not only has she beaten them before, done it easy. So I mean, this is an easy race for me.
I mean, listen, the one horse where I'm like, maybe that horse can sniff her a little bit here. She's running better than she has really her whole career. That's the one, Power Squeeze. And then you go back and you look at kind of when they've faced each other, and then you look at the numbers and you're like, no, no, actually she can't, so you look at, for instance, if you look at Power Squeeze and she ran Alabama, I thought she was great. The Delaware Oaks, she was looked pretty good. She got a 90 and 83 buyer in those races.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she'll be lucky if she's in the picture. Whenever Torpedo Anna crosses the finish line, if she runs those numbers. So it's all, to me, it's the only, there's 0.00% chance she loses if she's anywhere in her 80% range.
Yeah.
The big question mark, and I don't even know if it's a big question mark, but it's a question mark, is what did the Travers, did it take some starch out of her?
Yeah.
That's it, because that was the first time all year, really, she's had to run. And, and she damn near got the job done, but she didn't. But she ran her ass off. So did it take anything out of her? The workouts don't look like it did, but you never know until they line up.
Yeah, and that's just it. I mean, you do never know. And if you want to go with that route, Power Squeeze certainly seems to be the one that makes the most sense. But yeah, I just don't think that's a thing. I really think she'll be okay. I don't think she's going to bounce. The other thing is, couldn't you say after you saw her elevate her game in the Travers that she's been beating horses at 70 to 80% all year long?
Yeah, for real. She's only done what she's not even needed to do. Just, you know what I mean? Just kind of fucking around.
Yeah.
When you watch the Travers, you're like, oh shit, she's got 4 other gears that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
And on top of that, she showed this, not to say she didn't, I didn't think she didn't have it, but when she showed the guts of, hey, I'm going to get to this horse. Yeah. And listen, it can't be said more that zero, not to get into the Colts side, but when Fierceness has ran that race that he ran that day, and the one he's kind of starting to at least somewhat run consistently, no horse is close, right? Mm-hmm. When he runs that race, no horse gets close to him. And the fact that she not only got close to him, but had them beat at the end, what, 5 yards past the wire.
Yeah.
I mean, this show just tells you something. She earned so much in defeat that day. I think, obviously, this is a bigger picture kind of thing. I think she is honestly, she would win the Pennsylvania Derby for fun if she ran in the next race.
Yeah, I feel like she would be 2 to 5, 3 to 5 probably in the Pennsylvania Derby. So yeah, and again, if you want to play against her, I can't really tell you don't do it, because you are going to get blown up if you do hit it. But at the same time, I wouldn't play against her thinking you're going to cash either, because a play against her is just a hope that she doesn't fire, because going in, if she fires, there's no way you're going to win.
Yeah, and kind of reading the comments, like Curtis, he's playing against her, and that's just how he plays, right?
Yep.
He's a smart guy. He fully understands she's going to win probably, but there's not, the way he plays is not playing $100 straight pick 3. It's playing a pick 3 that if it hits, it crushes, and if it were, if you get a pick 3 out with Torpedo Anna not in it, it's going to be huge, right?
Yep.
So that's the whole logic. Like when someone says, "Oh, I'm picking against her," well, it doesn't mean they don't think they're going to win. It just means there's no value in that pick. And so if you are playing that way, it's hard to do, right? Because you almost have to take her out of the race and just pretend she's not in it. Would you go power squeeze, or are you going somewhere else, or who do you kind of think could be that horse?
Well, you look at it and go, well, maybe Mystic Lake, the 8, can take him gate to wire. Maybe she can get out ahead and Torpedo Anna doesn't fire and they can't come get her. So I would put the 8 on a ticket. Honestly, I think that's a horse that can get out in front. I don't know how far this horse can go, but going to have the lead. It's at Parx, the 5 and the 1. I'd go 1, 5, 8, and maybe even the 3 as well, depending on how deep you're going to go in other legs. How many shots do you want to take to try to beat her? You would hate to beat her and not have the right horse here, right? So I would probably go 1, 3, 5, 8, and then try to, single up who I like in the 13th or 14th and go from there if that's how I was going to play it. Again, I'm not going to play it that way, but if the strategy is to beat her, I think those are your clear horses that can do it.
Well, we'll say this about it, and I don't think she's I don't think she's going to lose, period. Plain and simple. But I will say this about the race. It does have horses in there that weren't, or maybe at some point were supposed to be good and then weren't, or horses that are kind of starting to become good. They're running some of their better races right now. Power Squeeze, even you want to go Tarifa, kind of looked a little bit better that last start, after being a bounce in the Oaks. Even the 5 Sidamera, whatever how you pronounce that, got second, to Power Squeeze, a horse that has been running okay. And then I think Gunsong is another one that, maybe, I don't know if the horse is good enough, but again, my whole point is they're all kind of starting to run a little bit better races than they have been. And so they're going to have, she's going to have to bounce 1,000%, and they're all going to have to run the best race that they've ran so far. But I guess that's racing. Could happen.
No, we've seen horses get beat that are huge favorites. It's not a shock after you've seen it for 15 years, anymore. But at the same time, you can't sit here and logically say she's losing.
Yeah. Bigger picture. So let's just assume she wins. Her career, or her year, I should say, is a dominant win in the Fantasy, a dominant win in the Oaks, a dominant win in the Acorn, a dominant win in the CCA Oaks, all grade 1s, by the way, and then a near win in the grade 1 Travers. This would then add to a grade 1 Cotillion, and then potentially a grade 1 Breeders' Cup Distaff to end her year. Is that enough for Horse of the Year?
She's the horse of the year unless Fierceness wins the Classic.
So obviously the only horse to beat her this year would be the only horse that could beat her in the Horse of the Year.
Yep. That's the way I look at it. That's an overarching statement, not knowing exactly what might happen with other horses between now and then. But as I sit here right now, just off the top of my head, basically I'm saying Fierceness wins the Classic. He's the Horse of the Year. If he doesn't and Torpedo Anna does what you just said, I think she's the horse of the year.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I mean, if they both just say let's fast forward to November 2nd, I think it is. If she wins the distaff, she's leader in the clubhouse, right? She's horse of the year.
Yep.
At that point, it becomes Fierceness has to win the classic to be that, right? He just has to. And there's no way, even a second place effort, a good effort, second place wouldn't be enough, in my opinion.
Nope. I agree.
So I think you will have, assuming she wins here, right? She will have that kind of, and it's a bummer, right? Because it's with the fillies, it's just, there's no room for error, there really isn't. So Fierceness has had his races, where it's been hit and miss, but with her, it's like she's got to be perfect almost, and she damn near is. So, yeah, I'm with you. I hope she wins here because that'd be a fun storyline on not obviously the racing happening on Saturday at the Breeders' Cup will be great, but it'd be a nice little storyline as well.
Yep, that would be great. All
right, we have both on number 6, the filly Torpedo Anna, to win the Cotillion. It's gonna be I agree. I think I don't know where I saw the comment, but someone had mentioned this. Jeff, it's not a bad field really for considering she's in it, right? Decently sized field of 8, and obviously, anytime you got a freak in there like her, it's they pulled out a decent one there with some. I think Power Squeeze is a nice horse.
Yeah. I think it's a good. I mean, look, if she wasn't here, it'd still be a field where we go, oh, this isn't bad. We kind of got the best of what's left out there,
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. Because what's behind her, it's tough sledding, anyways. So, all right, let's head to Gulfstream Park for the one and only. This is kind of the final calm before the storm, because it is the one and only Breeders' Cup Challenge Series race this weekend, race number 10. At Gulfstream Park, the Princess Rooney Invitational Stakes Grade 3 were $220K. That's right. They found $20K, I guess, somewhere. 7 furlongs, fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. Field of 10 lines up here, and you've got the 5 versus the 10 basically on paper. Now 8-5 on Soul of an Angel, cutting back for Safi. And the Barboza Juniors got 9-5. Number 10, Beth's Dream, who seems to be kind of the horse at this distance that's the one to beat. So, cut back versus the prime horse at this distance. Who you got?
Yeah, Beth's Dream, the 10 horse that you mentioned. That's the horse I'm going to take on top here. 4 straight wins, all here at Gulfstream. Last time out, kind of won the quote unquote local prep for this one, and just dominated. And Mary Quite Contrary is a horse that not too bad, and this horse just kind of dominated her the last 2 times. So I think Beth's Dream is going to be really, really tough again, moving up in class. But I like the 10 Beth's Dream.
Yeah, you always have I'm not saying you absolutely have a t-shirt or something about her, but you like Mary Quite Contrary. I mean, so I'm not surprised that you went with that route. I went with the 5, Soul of an Angel, so maybe we'll cover this field. But I'm going with the angle of cutting back. Now, this horse has been running. I mean, you're going to 7 furlongs here, and this horse has been running, in the Personal Ensign, mile and 1/8, mile 16th, the Molly Pitcher, the Ogden Phipps. I mean, big time races this horse has been running. And obviously in those big ones, the Personal Instinct finished 3rd to Raging Sea and Idiomatic. If you remember, that was, well, I know you remember, but huge, obviously a huge gap between her and Raging Sea and Idiomatic. And then the Ogden Phipps, finished 5th, randomized. She's never that. But, for grade 1 caliber horses, and then it's Soul of an Angel. So it's probably a fitting race for her here. Cutting back, though, I think she is dangerous, kind of has that late kick. And so, getting that cutback at this distance, hasn't won at Gulfstream Park, but obviously has been running longer. So give me the 5 Soul of an Angel to upset. And listen, going to have to run down your horse, the 10 Best Dream. So give me the straight. I'm going to go straight 5 over 10 exacta in this race. I'll also say these horses have no chance at the Breeders' Cup.
No.
Is that too mean or no?
No, I'd say you're right on that one. Yeah. I would think Sweet Azteca would be a big favorite in that one.
Yep. Yeah, the freak has been galloping.
Nice.
There you go. Hey, listen, let's do it. I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him riding. We'll see. But hey, listen, you've got the 10 best stream. I got the 5 Soul of an Angel to win the Princess Rooney. Oh, Nisos.
Well, hopefully he gets back, and hopefully he can run more than 1 or 2, and that'd be great because he certainly looked like the best horse out there when he was around. And
sure.
then disappeared. So hopefully he can stay healthy.
I like Muth. Muth's been growing. I don't know if he grows on me. Like I don't know. Is he gonna run the Classic? You think? Because every time we do the rankings for the Breeders' Cup, he's never even on the list. And I wonder, it's like, why? Because I always add him. Like, I think I got him like 3rd or something, 3rd or 4th. And I don't know. Seems like he should.
I mean, I've never not liked him. So I hope he's there, but I don't know. I don't know if he'll make it or not.
Honestly, Rodney, I kind of think Sweet Aztec it might be the. Well, it's too early to say that, but we're talking about Gold or Cogburn. It's like she might be. I mean, she's so good, and she loves it out there, and it's just such a weird division, anyways. And she's such a perfect. I mean, she's just a specialist at that. So,
yeah. Oh yeah, I wouldn't argue with you guys there. She looks really, really good. So yeah, and she makes a lot of sense, and she's gonna be really tough. And again, it's too far away to be like, yeah, she's a lock, but she feels it,
All right, guys, that's all the time we have. Check us out at racingdudes.com for free picks and, of course, our premium selections. Click the Get Racing Dudes premium button at the menu at racingdudes.com to learn more. Go check out the best bets page over there at racingdudes.com as well. You know what saved me the last weekend, Halterman, is I played a couple NFL prop plays, parlays on Sunday, and man, I killed it. I think I hit 2 of them, but prop parlays are my NFL prop are my absolute favorite. I don't know. It's just I feel like I have a good read on them, and it's like playing fantasy only, with bets, right? So
yeah, you actually get paid.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be fair. Like I don't do a great job picking the games, right? In NFL, I'm not. Yeah, I think especially like spreads, right? I can pick winners, but picking spreads. So I just kind of try to stick with the parlay of the props,
I mean, it's really, really, really tough to pick NFL week in and week out. So yeah, I get it. What props were they?
Let's see. Let me bring them up real fast. And honestly, dude, it's like sometimes you'll see the Lions. You're like, dude, like all day they'll hit that, And it's not like sometimes it seems so low. So the big one I hit was I did Jane Daniels over 31.5 rush yards.
Nice.
Pacheco over 66.5 rush yards, and Kyler Murray. It was a rushing one over 32.5 rushing yards.
Oh wow, yeah.
I was like, when I looked at it, I was like, Daniels and Kyler are going over 30 rush yards, and then Pacheco, I just felt like it was a run game, right? And he got 95 or something, I think. So that one hit, and then the other one was like what I just tried to create value because I was like, the Texans are not losing. Oh, by the way, my other one I lost, which is so insane so I had Jonathan Taylor anytime TD score and Kamara anytime TD score for plus 383, and it's like Kamara had like 6 touchdowns, and I couldn't get Taylor in the freaking end zone. So that hurt. And then the one I did hit was a Sunday night football. I did Houston money line, and because I didn't think they were going to lose. And then I did Caleb Williams over 19.5 rush yards, just because I felt like they'd be getting killed and he would start trying to run around and do his thing. And of course, that's kind of what happened. So just created value, right? So I did play. I guess I did play one, but I had absolutely no fear that Houston was going to lose that game.
No, me neither. And they didn't really play all that well, and they still won. So yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, and Caleb Williams, you cashed on an over on Caleb Williams. That's not hard or easy to do. So good job there.
Well, 19 and a half, I thought that was kind of low, honestly. For a game
Well,
that they would be losing was my my theory. And it's like he's going to and I saw enough on for week 1. I was like he's going to be running around and doing, trying to make plays or whatever, and that poor guy just got absolutely annihilated the whole game. I'm lucky I hit it because I'm surprised he stayed in the game the whole time. Let's put it that way. But
yeah.
hey, listen. So be looking for those from me. I know Halterman and especially your dad have bets on football as well during the weekend. So maybe keep an eye out for those. Of course, football or horse racing. I'll get it there. Horse racing as well during the week, and obviously during the day on throughout the weekend. So bet Anthony Richardson INT every week. There you go. I don't know what
Bad.
his rushing total. I didn't. He hasn't ran the ball as much. He does, like, I feel like, and Curtis, you're a Colts guy, so like then it feels like he does it when he needs to, like those third down and long, and he starts to scramble, or the fourth down he goes for it or whatever. If they're in the red zone, he tries to make a play, but those, like, you running the ball, and then maybe that's because they're like trying to make sure he stays healthy, right?
Yeah, not a lot of called runs, I don't think.
Yeah.
A lot of scrambles. There you go. Only 7 design runs. That might start to change if the lack of success continues. I
Yep.
thought he looked decent in the first week. I thought he was pretty bad. It's week 2. So I know Curtis is down on him, and I know Curtis is a big college football fan, and I know that Anthony Richardson's never looked that good at any level. So I thought his week 1 gave a lot of hope, though. He looked pretty good, and he looked good in limited time last year at times. I think the biggest thing with him, you've got to somehow, some way get him a lot of experience, and he can't seem to get it because he gets hurt so much, but he's just very raw. That's the
Yep.
biggest problem.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? I think it was like 19 or something starts he's had, and his whole not NFL,
Yeah.
like college NFL. Like, the dude is just so
Healthy.
just so untested, really. And so, but his raw abilities, like, you see it. It's almost like when you watch a horse, like, workouts and maybe one race, you're like, he never can stay healthy, but my goodness, when he's unbelievable. But imagine what he would do. But he's never on the track, and he never, you know what I mean? He's nice, though, but no, it's he definitely, and so that keeps the interest level there for sure. But yeah, I don't. If you're a Colts guy, I don't know. It's tough. It looked really bad last week.
I still think there is some hope that they can kind of get the offense built in a way where he can have success. That's that. I still not like totally giving up hope on him, but you're going to have to start, week 3, 4, 5, 6, you're going to have to start seeing that progression, and, you got to give him time. That's the biggest thing. I have my doubts, but it's not over for him. I know that for sure. You just gotta hope they can scheme an offense and that he can kind of fit into.
Yeah, what will help, and I know, Curtis, you're a big fan. Josh Downs, I think he's supposed to be coming back, I think this week or maybe next week. But I think he's a guy that could be he's obviously a great wide receiver. Had a good year last year anyways, but maybe he's a guy that at least can give him some sort of safety valve or something, get open in routes to where he can at least extend plays and get, whatever it is. But they don't have, I think Pittman has been kind of disappointing. I thought he might be good. Jonathan Taylor, obviously, is a stud, but he can't do everything. They don't, Pierce is okay, from like the long ball kind of, standpoint, but they need someone that can move the chains. And so maybe Downs is that guy. I don't know.
Yeah. No, and I think, just watching young quarterback from an OU standpoint, and they're not all the same, but a lot of times you start off the season with a young guy, and what you see in practice and then what you see in the games, it doesn't match. And then after a couple of weeks, you kind of scheme the offense around, okay, what is he doing well in these games? And, you see improvement. And that's kind of what we saw week 2 to week 3 at OU. He's still not very good, but they found things he did well. And I think that's the same thing with Richardson or any young quarterback, even if it's, Caleb or Jaden or even Bo Nix. I don't know what you could do with him, but some of these other guys, okay, we've got a couple weeks of tape. Now let's find the things that they're comfortable with and then ease back in some of the other stuff. And that's what a good coaching staff will do. And then they're going to give the guy the best opportunity. And I think that's what the Colts will do. And we're going to find out, right? If Richardson could kind of execute some of those type of things.
Yeah, well, you definitely don't. If we learned anything, well, I think most of us know this, but preseason means nothing.
No.
And you see guys like Bo Nix and Caleb Williams just thrive in preseason in the first week. They're like, oh, this is different. And so nothing prepares a player more than it's like we talk a lot about this just privately, but it's like. Because, like, for instance, Bryce Young getting benched, right? And now you have Dalton, Andy Dalton coming. And so it's like, even though Andy Dalton certainly is not a great quarterback, he's a veteran. And so he knows how to like move the ball, right? And that's just something you learn. These guys have to learn, like these veterans, it's like, look at Minshew. He's not great, but he knows how to like move the ball downfield and if you got the guys around him, right, you can make plays happen. It's this stuff that you have like the NFL, full speed NFL. And I say this as as an average white dude that's in my late 30s. So I really don't know, right. But it's just different,
I feel like all these quarterbacks in college can get away with it, not being exactly perfect with everything because the windows are bigger and the throw in and the speed isn't there. And I think what you're kind of referring to with a veteran quarterback like Andy Dalton or Minshew is they understand, they've been in the league long enough to understand their limitations. And it goes back to what I was just talking about. You don't really have to tell them what they need to do. They know and understand these are the few things that I can do well. We're going to do them. And if they stop what I can do well, we're fucked. Like I can't do anything else. You know what I mean? And I think with the younger quarterbacks, that's what you kind of have to learn as they go. They have to learn what they can do well. And the coaching staff also has to know, okay, this is what I can ask this guy to do and he can do it. And this is what he can't do. And you go from there. Right. And I think with Dalton and perfect example, he knows what he can do. He's been in the league long enough. He knows the plays, not so much the plays even, but the routes that he can throw well in this league. That it's that simple, really.
Yeah, that's the thing that the veterans they know, like they come in, they know the routes. If it's open, it's there. Like it's very hard to like have a, Andy Dalton's not going to like, run around and ad lib and then throw this crazy 40-yard dime across his. No. It's just like I said, that's why I say like they can move the ball downfield.
Yeah,
they know how to move the
1 to 2 seconds, throw it to a guy that's open. If he's not open, throw it over his head. Next play. I mean, that's it. That's it.
And I think what you're saying is like a guy like, especially young, a guy like Bo Nix, say, is used to if it's like, hey, I can make that throw. But no, like every guy you're playing against is even if the receiver burned him at first, he's gonna make up the ground and get, you know what I mean? So you can't make that throw like you're used to throwing in college. You can get away with it. It's something that most of them have to learn pretty hard.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at Baker Mayfield when he was in college and make a read or two, it wasn't there. He's taken off and he's faster than a lot of the guys. And he starts that in the NFL and it's like, well, you're sacked every time.
Yeah.
Or maybe a couple times a game you might get loose and get 4 or 5, but he had to learn, oh shit, like I'm not a bad athlete, but I am compared to these guys that are chasing me down in this league. So you stick in the pocket, you take the sack, you throw it away, or you get it out of your hands. And again, for a lot of these guys, that takes a lot of time before they realize that.
Well, it says a lot about quarterbacks because it's where it's like to have that like mindset of be like, okay, I'm not as good as I thought, or whatever it is, however you want to word it. But like now I gotta retrain myself to be good again, kind of thing, And
Yep.
that's not a lot of those guys. One guy in particular that I can think of is, do they have that mind to be like, okay, I need to like kind of rewire my brain again to like, you know what I mean?
Yep. Absolutely.
Oh, I would. Okay, speaking of that, let's what's your thoughts? Because there's been a lot. I don't know if you've seen this. So after the game Sunday night football was the CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams
Yeah.
meeting up midfield. Did you see it? Like,
Yeah. I didn't see it. No.
okay, so they met up, right? They just, of course, Caleb acts like he has no interest in anything, and they get to midfield, they shake hands, but it's real, and CJ kind of pulls him back, kind of like, and he's, I think CJ's like, just from what I can tell, he seems like a great dude. Like he seems, first, he's like, first thing he did is thank, his Lord and Savior, like he just seems like that good dude. But he like kind of brings him back and he's like chalking him up and stuff. And like, to me, I didn't view it as like, I was like, dude, the guy is basically Caleb. He had lived it last year. He wasn't a first round pick or the first draft pick, but he was right there. And he kind of, so I would want to listen to a guy like that that's had success as a rookie and now his second year.
Yeah.
But you could tell Caleb had less than zero interest in hearing any of it, just none of it.
Right.
And then there's been all this backlash about, from media and stuff that's like, they call it like little bro. Like, you can't little bro. Like, what is CJ like? Like they're the same age. Like that's if it's Mahomes doing it or if it's Aaron Rodgers doing it to Caleb, that's allowed. But I don't know. So my thought, I was like, I never viewed it. I was like, I would think that's great advice. Someone to get advice from if you're Caleb, because he's right there. You want to be what CJ is right now. So I just thought it was a little blown up for people to be like criticizing CJ for offering advice like that.
I think I couldn't care less about this.
But what are your thoughts? Like, what do you think?
I literally could not
be allowed.
I literally could not care less what they did. I think that those kind of things are completely meaningless. So I mean, I think we both know without that little moment that Caleb Williams is an asshole and he's entitled and he's a baby and it's not working so far, right? The play on the field can show you that. And I think that's just how it is. He just hasn't. You talk about guys that hasn't realized he's not in college anymore. I think it's probably example number one. He's just been, he's not handling himself right,
Yeah. I mean, it just blew my mind. Well, one, I didn't think anything at the time when I watched it. I was like, honestly, I was like, that's great. Like that is like CJ's a good dude. That's what I would listen to that guy, And then I couldn't believe over the last couple of days I've been seeing people talk bitch about it. I'm like, why? Like you're mad that you don't think CJ would have, and honestly, one of the guys I love because he's my, the Chiefs guy, Nick Wright. But he was criticizing it, and I'm like, no, like I think it's stupid. Like, who cares? It to me, it's like to a T. If you're Caleb Williams, what you would want to strive to be. CJ had an insanely good rookie year. He's now what is he? Third in the rankings and MVP this year. Like that's what if you're Caleb, that's what you would want. So I would listen. I don't know. It just seemed insane to me.
I don't.
But I'll say this: watching it and seeing the way he acted, I was like, you know what? That in a nutshell is exactly what Halterman and I bitch about every week. If he doesn't want to listen to that, he's clearly not listening to anyone else. And we'll just until he figure. Honestly, his raw abilities don't mean a lot until he figures that out.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have it all to be an NFL quarterback. Yeah, you can't raw ability. Even if you got a lot of it, it doesn't take you far enough. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, he'll have he won't be out of the NFL in 2 years.
No, but he's either going to have to adjust or he's not going to make it. I mean, that's just it. And again, it's only 2 weeks, but the signs are every worry that we had about him or concern that we had about him, not that we're sitting around worried about him, but the concern when people would ask us about, hey, what do you think of him? And we said, I don't know. It's all happened in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So but again, there's a lot of time and a lot of games left, but yeah, it's not looking good so far.
Yeah. I wonder at what point the Chicago fans are going from like, he's the Lord and Savior to, I don't know. Let's wait.
Well,
Of course, that's a fan base that's had a lot of turnover and a lot of heartbreak at that position.
I remember, talking to Randa, Ryan's wife, big Bears fan. She said, hey, you've been close to this guy, as far as watching him in person and stuff. What do you think? And I said, well, he's the exact opposite of Fields, Justin Fields. I can tell you that. And she's like, oh, that's great. I was like, well, he's the exact opposite in some good ways and in some really bad ways. Because the thing you can say about Fields, you could see he cared a lot. He wants to be great. He's just not, right?
Right.
So this kid, he's going to walk in and think he is the best quarterback to ever play in the NFL before he takes one snap. And that's just him. And I hope for your sake as a Bears fan, that works. I have my doubts that that's going to work. So, but again, he's very talented and maybe he can figure that part of it out as he goes. We'll see.
Well, yeah, we will. We'll see. All right. Yeah, I've got the Colts this weekend. Curtis, Caleb's going to torch him, huh? That's what you think. So
I can't even imagine a world where he does, but it is the NFL, so we'll see.
Well, all right. All right, guys. That's going to wrap it up for us. The Magic Mike show is live right now, so go check out that on our channel after you're done. You can find all us on Twitter at race_dudes, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. All episodes of Blinkers Off are on our podcast page on the website or, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and, anywhere you listen to a podcast, Apple, obviously, anywhere you listen, we are there. And of course, go to our YouTube page. Just go to YouTube, search Racing Dudes, and make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and notification button so you'll get alerted when we go live. All right. Until next time, guys. I guess the dudes bet, you guys did that earlier. You guys did go over this weekend's slate, right?
Yep. Yeah, we went over college and NFL. Of course, the big game will be in Norman this weekend, so we talked about it a lot. We talked about all the ranked matchups a lot as well. Another really, really good college football weekend. And, of course, NFL, always fun, always interesting.
Well, I got a last question. I forgot to ask you this. How are you feeling about your Rams pick at today?
I mean, it's pretty much over, right?
It's not good. Injury. They looked. The injuries have hit them hard. Yeah.
Well, if you go back and listen, the big reason why I liked them is they're all healthy, and you've got all these receivers on the field at the same time. They're gonna be tough to stop, and that lasted like 2 plays.
Yeah, Puka said nope, actually not, and then the next week, Cooper Kupp's like nope, actually not either as well. So
yeah,
now the guy that the Chiefs cut, Demarcus Robinson, is basically their wide receiver 1, and
that ain't gonna work.
Yeah, it's not good. So we'll find out. A lot of 0-2 teams that are in the NFL, Bengals and Ravens on the top of that list that probably shouldn't. Well, you wouldn't have thought we're going to be 0-2. So we'll see. And some 2-0 teams that I didn't think would be 2-0. So
no.
So it's been a weird couple weeks, but start to level off. We'll see. And I think I did see the Cooper Kupp did avoid the IR, so that's good. But I don't know how long that's going to mean. So
yeah, that's good though, at least. Yeah,
and he'll come back and maybe get hurt again. But that's. But dude, the Puka thing, man, he's like, I don't think he's got a timeline. I mean, that's just crazy. But
bad. That's a bad loss because having Puka and Cooper out there together would have been awesome.
Oh yeah,
like I said, we saw it for a few plays. So
yeah, literally a few plays. But all right, guys. Good luck this weekend. Good luck football. Good luck in the Pennsylvania Derby. Good luck at Parx and, of course, Gulfstream Park. I'm Jared Welch. He's Aaron Halterman. Good luck this weekend. We'll see you next time. Maybe. Where's it at? There we go.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Blinkers Off. Join our horse racing community at racingdudes.com and follow us on Twitter at racing_dudes. Want to make money betting horses? Bet with the Racing Dudes.